fantastic conversation today on this Valentine's Day. If it is something that you choose to celebrate, it's just another day for many people. We're going to talk all about self-care today, and I am thrilled to be here with my co-host, Kelly Ann. And she is in a much warmer climate right now, while I am sitting here amongst my frost fed trees. Anyways, we are so happy that you're joining us today. Please say hello in the chat. Let us know where you're tuning in from. And if you do happen to catch this as a replay, we would love to hear you as we continue to see our wonderful podcast find new eyes and ears. We would love to see where you're tuning in from. And before I pass the mic over to Kellyanne, I'd like you to type in the chat right now, as you think about self-care, what self-care means to you. If you were to pick one form of self-care, whatever that looks like for you, that you feel has the most benefit, impact in your life, supports you, type in the chat, what is that form of self-care? We would love to hear from you. Hi, Kellyanne.
Good morning, everyone. I am in South Carolina having a nice week with my mom and dad, which is really special because at my age, I'm very fortunate to have both of my parents. So I'm just enjoying some time, quality time with them. So this is kind of some of my self-care is getting away from it all. Good morning to the people who are coming in. Great to see you here. And as I was really pondering some of the ideas about self-care, I just looked online for a couple little things. And the one thing that really hit me was that the World Health Organization recognizes self-care as a critical aspect of maintaining good health. And so it's not just something nice to do. It's really something that is so important for our health. And, years ago, even when I was a young mom, self-care wasn't really something we talked about. So, and, when you look back in the generations, like my mom didn't know anything about self-care. And so I think we are at the world is awakening to some new things and some new paradigms about how we live our best lives. And self-care is such a critical part of that.
Yeah, it absolutely is. And I was saying to Kellyanne that I want to take us back to, I agree with you. We weren't taught what self-care and we're women. We tend to have a women-based audience for the most part. I realize it's not that everybody somehow needs this conversation. I respect that, but I am going to talk to the women. I'm going to talk to the women because we have grown up seeing our mothers, seeing our grandmothers, seeing our great grandmothers constantly doing, putting everyone else's needs before their own. And not only was it done because it was expected to be done, often by their male partners, right? Just gonna say. It also was seen as like, if you didn't do it, like, what kind of woman are you? Like, you take care of your man, you take care of your children, you put everybody else first. And if you don't, then shame on you and you are talked about. Well, we know where that got us. I mean, I'm just, I look back to what my life was like when my children were young. And I was dealing with all the things that are all part of my story, which I'm not going to get into. But on top of my pressures and my struggles, I was trying to be the perfect mom. I was the one that was trying to do all the things, that had to make the cookies for school, had to make homemade birthday cakes for my kids, and do all the things. And even though, yes, I went to the gym and yes, I did those things, I was always going. There was always this Kim on the hamster wheel. And again, that's what society likes to glorify, is being busy. And how many things do you have? And what do you have to prove for yourself? And if you're sitting around, well, then you're lazy, right? But the fact is, when I was burning myself out, burning the candle at both ends, it was because there was a lack of self-care. And I'm talking beyond the bubble baths. I'm talking beyond the visits to the gym. I'm talking about the bigger things. And I know we're going to get into that today, but this is such an important conversation. And we all need to hear it many, many times because we are conditioned because of what we've been taught and what we had modeled to us. So, those are some of my thoughts to get this conversation going.
Well, and I love Joanne talked about, and this is perfect, exactly, that self care can look different every day. So, what you need today can be very different from what you need tomorrow. And I think one of the most important things that we can do is to really check in with ourselves each day and determine and ask ourselves the question, what am I lacking today? Or what am I really longing for today? And if you take the time, I believe that all of that is inside you and you can uncover it. And some days you might find that your self-care, you don't really think about it because you're kind of filling your cup as your day goes along. And other days self-care is essential to you because maybe you're dealing with stresses at work, or you're dealing with stresses in relationships, or you're worried about something. And so checking in with yourself to determine, what do I need right now? And that looks so different for everybody. You know, if we were to ask, and Kim, you did ask, what is your form of self-care? We would all have different answers. You know, as Kim said, this is beyond the bubble bath and the manicure. For some of us, that definitely is self-care. Like a bath for me is definitely a form of self-care. But I know that I'm really good at self-care now, but I'm also almost 57 years old, and it has taken me that long to get to that point. When I was Kim's age, I was not good at self-care. I was doing all the things. I was in a job, I was teaching, I was in a job that stressed me out big time, and I didn't know how to deal with that stress. I didn't have good strategies of coping with that stress. And it ended up that I ended up retiring early because I just couldn't do it anymore. And I think we all have stresses in our lives. We all have things that are challenges. So we really need to take that time, because when we take care of ourselves, we take care of everybody else better. And we also handle those challenges. We develop resilience. We know that we can get through that next challenge because we know how to fill our own cup.
Yeah,
And that's
absolutely.
through self care.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. There's a beautiful expression, and I'm trying to remember who said it, but we don't pour from our cup. We want to keep our cup full, and we want to pour out to others what comes from our overflow, which is why it's also important for us to be able to receive, right? Like receive
Mhm.
somebody offering us help, so that this is how the world goes round and round. But, I'm thinking back, Kellyanne, I just want to talk about the stage of life where it's really busy. It's really, really busy. There could be a person right now that's listening who might not have support. They might not have the resources. They might not know how to ask for help. And so that can feel really challenging to say, well, how am I supposed to take care of myself? There's absolutely no time. And, whether or right or wrong about that statement, the fact is that's their feeling. That's their feeling that there is no time. And so I just want to speak to that a little bit because we often want to look for things that give us energy, right? How do I get more energy? How do I feel better? We think of that when it comes to self care. But what are the things that are draining us? What are the things that are taking away that feeling that helps to keep our cup full? And recognizing that. And I mean, that could be, this is really about asking you, everybody that's listening, what is it in your life that's draining you? What are the things that are taking your energy away from you? What is making you feel exhausted? Because that's where I say these concepts of learning how to say no, learning how to say not right now. I don't have it in my energy today to do that. Being able to do that is so so important. So it might not mean that you're going to be able to go out and have those full days with yourself. Maybe you have small children, maybe you're a single parent, in-laws are far away. But the fact is, what can you do with your life right now that at least will pour back into you? Here's the thing, the way I look at it. We might not get large chunks of time or have the ability to do some of these things that some of our friends might be doing for their forms of self-care, but little tiny pockets of time add up. And being able to take, I don't know, 5 minutes pausing in your day, sitting with a book, like these are all forms of self care for me because they allow me to slow down my life. I recognize that, in the last few years, I recognized how much of my life was in override. Like my nervous system, I was in push, 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 that grind, that hustle. And I recognized just how much I loved to be. And so for me, that means allowing myself to go to bed earlier at night and not feeling like I need to stay up and do all the things that other people might be doing because they think they have to. I really think it's a personal decision how you want to feel without being able to worry about what other people are going to think of you, because as we've said, it's different for everybody. And I think our lives make that change, right? What we've gone through, what we've lived through.
Yeah, so true. And I think when we can start to make self-care a habit,
Mhm.
and it can just be those small little, maybe in the morning when you're getting ready, you're listening to a song that lifts you up, or you are listening to a podcast. For me, podcasts really are part of my self care. So just carving out, start small. You
Mhm.
don't have to start with an hour massage. Um, Again, that's part of my self care, but I have the time to be able to do those things. But for people who are still working, who are busy, who have young children, my children are grown. My time is really my own, so I'm very fortunate that I can fit those things in. But even a 5 minute meditation,
Mhm.
writing a morning routine is often, or a nighttime routine is often, a perfect time to fit in some self-care. So whether that is you know listening to something at night, in the morning, whether it's a short meditation, whether it's a gratitude journal, those kinds of things, or sometimes it's just closing your eyes and being still.
Mhm.
Sometimes it's a walk. Maybe you just get into a habit of, you get home from work and you put on your running shoes and you go out for a walk. Because once it becomes a habit, it until it becomes a habit, you're going to feel like, oh my gosh, I have to fit this in. But once it becomes a habit, then it's just part of your day,
Yeah.
right?
It's totally getting over that hump, and it's so, so
Yeah.
important to, our we like to get pulled back to where we're comfortable, even if that comfortable is uncomfortable. It's where our subconscious wants to keep us, right? But I mean, I'm seeing Kim's comment like a few weeks ago. I think we're probably maybe even in week 3 or 4. I should back, but we started this morning meditation at 7 a.m. on my Instagram page, and I have been loving it. The people who have been coming are loving it, and then there's a lot of regular people, and that was because we did something together. So I think that that's important too, is to
Mhm.
recognize, maybe you find a buddy, somebody in your neighborhood that you're going to walk with. Maybe you both tend to get home around the same time and you make that commitment to one another. I think bottom line is it comes down to recognizing like what you need. We know when we are not doing well.
Mhm.
We know when our cup is running empty. What happens? We get short, we get irritable, we are resentful, we lash out, we don't sleep as well. I mean, the list goes on and on. It starts to impact us. And so that's why we've said it at the beginning of this conversation. When you take care of yourself, you are then able to be kinder, more loving, more supportive, more helpful to the people around you. Bottom line, if I wasn't taking care of myself right now in the ways that I do, I would not be able to support my children in the ways that they need me. I would not be able to, work as a team with my husband to keep our household running the way it does. So it's about telling your partner and letting the people in your life know, maybe today I'm at a 2 out of 10 and you're at an 8 out of 10. So maybe you can take a little bit of the load today so I can bring my 2 up to a 4 or a 5. You see what I'm talking about here? It's about communicating your needs and working together. I think it's just so important.
Yeah, I agree. And I think sometimes we, you know, as I say, I was kind of doing a little bit of research, not really research yesterday, but just kind of getting my mind around some things. And it talked, and this is something I hadn't really thought about. So one of the things that there are 5 areas of self-care. And I didn't really think about it this way. So there's physical, emotional, mental, social, and spiritual. And honestly, I never really thought about it that way. I think as we talked about, sometimes you need different things at different on different days. So if you can kind of imagine those 5 areas, maybe there are things in one of those areas that you never really thought of as self care, like getting together with a girlfriend for a coffee or a glass of wine. If you're missing that connection, then that is absolutely self care. If listening to, somebody mentioned inspirational music, or, if that is your connection to your spirituality, to the universe, to the divine, whatever it is, that is self-care. I think we do some things that we maybe don't really recognize as self-care, but I invite you to recognize those things, to start to say, yes, this makes me feel good, so I'm going to start doing more of this. And one of the things that we tend to do, especially in that busy time of our lives, is that we see self care as a reward. So, okay, I've had a really crazy week, so I'm going to go and get a manicure because I've had such a crazy week. Or um, whatever it is. But self care is not a reward. It's not a reward for hard work. It is part of your maintaining your health, your mental health, your spiritual health, all of those things. So don't only see it as a reward. Look at it as more of a habit, a daily thing that you do um, to make yourself better.
Yeah, I love that. Think about some of the episodes that we've had before where we talked about belief systems. So as you're starting to pour back into yourself, as you're starting to put your own needs, they might not always be first. We recognize that sometimes other things have to come first, but the fact is you're starting to prioritize yourself more. And you might start to feel some resistance around that. You might start to have some critical self talk. People might say things. This is where, so think back to some of our old episodes where you can start to remind yourself why it is you're doing this, that this is not something that you have to earn, that this is not something that you have to deserve, that this is something that is going to be a part of your life moving forward. So start to be really mindful of those patterns and those thoughts that are showing up along the way. I was thinking to myself as you were talking, that also some of the things that we have been doing for ourselves that we feel our self care, but then you still know that there's something missing. Sometimes it might mean that you're going to have to juggle things around and you're going to have to shift things around a little bit in order to try new things. Because until you start doing other forms of ways of pouring back into yourself, ways of taking care of yourself, you won't truly know what you need. I only say that because when I think about exercise, which a lot of people see as self care, a lot of times people's exercise is built up around a lot of beliefs around what it's supposed to look like, how hard it's supposed to be. So if you're already depleted and you're already highly stressed because you're carrying a lot of pressure, and now you're adding on more intense pressure onto your body through those forms of exercise, if you were to start to do something that is a little bit more gentle with your body, a little bit more loving, that actually could be very restorative to you and actually help to recharge that battery of yours. So just be really open to that and explore different things, because that again is part of recognizing that you don't have to do what society says, you get to do what works for you. So I just think that's a really important reminder that we all need along the way.
So true. And I find for my husband, I know for my husband, like his self-care is working out.
Mhm.
And I see that that's how he deals with his stress. So he goes for a workout. He can be totally stressed, kind of on edge. He goes for a workout and he feels great after that. I see a change in him after
Mhm.
that. I would love to say that exercise is my form of self care, but I think it also goes back to, like I spend a lot of time, or I've learned, I should say, I've learned that the person that I am, which is very much an introvert, I don't like to label things, but I know I've learned that being an introvert means I've allowed myself some grace, because I used to think that I just didn't like people. I didn't like being around people. Um, but for me, very much self care is being by myself. And sometimes that is hard to explain to people,
Mhm.
right? Like sometimes your self care can feel like rejection, or can feel uncomfortable to some of the people in your life.
Mhm.
So that's something I know that I have had to kind of navigate with my husband, because when I need to be by myself, he's very much extroverted. So he wants to be talking and doing stuff and all. And for me, I need to go and be by myself.
Mhm.
And it's taken, well, we've been together 33 years, and
Mhm.
we've been married 33 years, and it has taken many, many years for him to understand that that is my self care. That it doesn't mean that I don't love him. It doesn't mean I don't want to spend time with him, but it means that I have to do this for me so that I'm a better partner for you.
Mhm.
Um, so some of it's sometimes it means having those hard conversations. I know one of my mentors that I follow, he takes a yearly vacation by himself.
Mm.
And he said, that is a huge part of my self care. And at first, his wife was
Mm.
offended by that, right? She didn't like that. And to be honest, that's a dream of mine, to go away by myself, because that would be, to me, that's the ultimate in self care for somebody like me. But again, I haven't navigated that yet with my husband. So I think it's important to have those conversations with each other, to, if you do have a partner in your life, to be, or even if you live with other people in your home, to be able to say, this is what I need to be able to fill my cup. And please understand that what I need is in no way, um, kind of a negative against you. This is just what I need. I don't know if you've ever had that, Kim. I think
Yeah,
it,
I mean, I think we have, and I'm definitely more social than my husband, and I have way more friends than my
mhm,
husband. I think it's just because of who I am and the amount of people I know in my life. Um, but I also like, yeah, I do a lot of things without my husband just because, and we're cool like that. It's
yeah,
totally fine, right? But then I also know that I do need my time alone because I feel it. Like whenever I come home from something that's very social and very fun, I still feel my battery depleted a little bit. I've
mhm,
also learned that too when I host things with my business, right? Like I always feel that extra drain afterwards. But I mean, it's bottom line, it is knowing yourself and being okay with that. And you speak about that when we talk about, potentially having to change your plans. how many times are we supposed to go out with friends? You talk about going out with friends and having that glass of wine or going out and enjoying your time, but let's be real, sometimes that's actually not what we want. And so to me, a good friend, somebody who, and this is about really knowing one another and sharing, and that's the importance of being vulnerable with your friends, is to be able to say, tonight I just need a night at home. And
Mhm.
I hope you understand. And I mean, this is what we do for one another. So you gotta be, this is the whole journey of knowing yourself. This is what we talk about all the time, is to actually be like, you know what, I don't want that life anymore, which is actually a little tiny teaser for next week's podcast episode, where we're going to talk about midlife and how things sometimes start to change, and we look at life differently. So just a little teaser for next week. We hope you'll come
Mhm.
up for it.
Yeah, I think that you're right, Kim. We know, if we take the time, we know what feels good for us. We know what doesn't feel good for us. And stepping into your power and being able to say to yourself and to the world, this is what I want. This is what I need. Sometimes it takes till that midlife point to be able to do that.
Yeah.
Sometimes some people never get to that point.
Mhm, mhm.
Um, I look at, and I think the world is changing, because I see a lot of younger women being able to do that. And I envy that because it's taken me a long time, but I know the path that I was meant to walk is the path that I walked. Um, but it's, so we, everything we need is inside us. We need to start to trust ourselves. And I know for me, and I think I speak for probably many women, is that we don't trust ourselves. We
Mhm.
have let the world tell us what we need, and stepping into your own power and trusting what you need and what you desire, takes courage.
Sure does. Sure does. And that's why you have to have people in your life who are on the same path as you, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, it makes such a difference. Honestly, like, and it's never too late. Like I look at, I find it's just, there's a lot of people who have these big, huge giving hearts, and they love to be of servant, be of service to other people. But, I see it. I see the exhaustion. I see them, and then of course with the work that I do, self-care, when self-care is lacking in people's lives, high stress, no time for themselves, food becomes their source of
Mm,
de-stressing, comfort, and that's why self-care is always a big part of my conversation when I'm with my clients,
mhm,
is how are you doing in the self-care department? Because I always say food never talks back to us, and it makes us feel
mhm,
good even for a moment. So if this is, if you are the type of person who is struggling, maybe on some level with your food relationship, or even your body image on some level, because often when we're not feeling good about ourselves on some level, it then translates into what we see in the mirror. So really take a look at that, and do, like, there's a really beautiful self-care inventory that I do with my clients. But even for yourself to go and find something like that, I'm sure they're available for you to search and go take a look and go, how do I score in the self-care department? Because you might have your eyes a little widened open once you take a peek at that.
mhm. Exactly. And as we said, take small steps.
Mhm.
You know what? Find something. What is it that you love to do? Take an inventory of what you love to do. What fills your soul? If it's walking, if it's meditating, if it's having a drink with your girlfriend, if it's reading, listening to music, dancing, whatever it is, do more of that.
Mhm.
And take time, set out time to do more of that, because those are the things that light your soul up. Those are the things that fill your cup, so that, as we said, then you can share with the world and those you love the overflow.
Yes. Yes to all of it. I know. Take a deep breath. Everyone, thank you so much for tuning in to our episode, Raw and Unscripted. Both Kelly Ann and I love this opportunity where we get to speak from our hearts and share the things that we're passionate about, and also share the areas that we support women in. Both of us are coaches. So if you ever want to check out past episodes, learn more about us, please feel free to check out our YouTube channel, which I'll put in the thread below as well. Reach out to us, come follow us on our socials, especially if I don't know if there's a lovely woman here that I'm not sure who she is, Rhonda. I will say a little shout out to Rhonda. I'm not sure if you know who Rhonda is, but hello,
No.
Rhonda. Thank you for tuning in. A little shout out for you on this Valentine's, Rhonda. Anything you want to share, Kellyanne, before we say goodbye to everyone?
No, I just wish everybody a happy Valentine's Day. And today is about love. It's not just about romantic love. It's about loving yourself. And if you love yourself first, then you are so much better at giving love to other people. So go and love yourself today. Do some form of self-care.
Yes. Amen to that. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. Please feel free to share this episode with someone in your life who you feel could benefit with some more self-care in their lives. And we'll see you next week, Tuesday, 9:30 a.m. Eastern. Every week, we go live on a topic on our Raw and Unscripted podcast. Thank you for tuning in. Have a great day.
Bye, everyone.